top up with great skill from him. Doing the Mo Salah! Raheem Sterling! What a finish! What pure class from the Englishman!
Premier Talk, the English Premier League podcast for the fans.
Hello and welcome back to Season 2 of Premier Talk. I'm your host, Andrew Melo, and with me as always is my boy, Daniel Barbuto. Daniel, it feels good to be back after some time off. And, we're making moves. We're back to the grind. And here we are. We're going to be on YouTube this year. We're going to be on Spotify. We're going to be on Apple Podcasts. We're going to be everywhere. Daniel.
Oh, I can't wait. This is going to be an absolutely phenomenal season. I can't wait for all the content we're going to be pumping out for you guys. And Andrew, I can't wait to do it with you.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It was kind of weird being off for so long after tackling, episodes every week. And we're just here. We're back. We're ready to take it more serious. We're ready to hop on the YouTube platform as well. So we're just excited and something we love doing. So we're going to continue it. We got the starting lineup here in episode 1. We call it Back to the Grind because we're back on it now. And on the starting lineup, we got the table recap.
We're going to do some Liverpool struggles.
We're going to talk about City's success.
Manchester United and the title race that they've gotten themselves into.
And then transfer talk.
And we got some fan questions for you guys that we asked on our Instagram. So if any of you guys want to be featured, make sure to follow us on Instagram at PremierTalk Podcast, and we can get some of your questions answered in the podcast.
So we're going to start with the table recap here, Daniel. We're roughly 22 matches played. City's got 21. Some other teams with 21 as well. Aston Villa even with 20. So we're around the 22 match day mark. Currently sitting in first, we got Manchester City. They've been phenomenal of late. They're mid-table. Last time we were out doing our podcast, so in a month's time, they really changed things around. Really got a good streak going together. And then you got Man United in second, Leicester City in third. They've been doing quite well as well. Liverpool in fourth, and then surprisingly, we got West Ham rounding up the top 5 there. Notable positions here, we got Chelsea in 8th, and then Arsenal in 10th, and Tottenham, they've dropped out of first place, and they're sitting in 7th, so it's not looking good for the London-based side right now.
Yeah, even in the second half of the table, you got Leeds sitting in 11th, Southampton 12th, Crystal Palace 13th. We got Wolves sitting in 14th, which I think is a little bit more surprising one there. Brighton in 15th, Newcastle in 16th, Burnley in 17th, Fulham in 18th, West Brom in 19th, and Sheffield still bottom of the table from when we left in 20th. But they did pick up a surprising 3 points against Manchester United, which we will get to soon. What's your biggest surprise here, Andrew? I there's a lot of surprises here for me. Like I think Tottenham being where they are and Chelsea being where they are, and even West Ham sitting in 5th is really surprising to me.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. I was going to say Spurs for me. That's absolutely shocking after they're in first place at one point in time. They looked very convincing. They had when Son and Kane were really connecting there, they looked unbeatable at times. And you also see West Ham sitting in 5th. That's a huge shock for me. West Ham on paper, they're nowhere near being a 5th place team, but I think that Moyes has done a good job there with West Ham, and they've been playing quite well. So deservingly, I think they're in 5th right now, but on paper, nowhere near that. So that's quite surprising. And I just want to talk about Wolves for a second here. Wolves, they're a team that are so difficult to play against in terms of their tactics. Nuno Espírito Santo, the coach, he's very well-minded in terms of the team he puts out and the formation and the structure that he has to his team. And I think in that formation, that 3-5-2 that he usually plays with a 3-back and sometimes a lone striker with 2 wingers on either side, it's so hard to play that when you don't have that hold-up striker up top. And I think the absence of Raul Jimenez has been absolutely a daunting fill for them. And they bring in the January transfer window Brazilian striker Willian Jose. Will he solve their problem? I don't know. We're gonna have to see. He's been okay of late in his first couple games, so that's the problem. They're really missing Jimenez right now.
Mm-hmm. And when we left on our break, it was Sheffield in 20th, West Brom in 19th, and Fulham in 18th, and that hasn't changed at all. None of those teams have really done very well over the last month. And for me, even Arsenal sitting in 10th, they had such a great run of form during the first half of the month. And they were 6 games unbeaten, I believe. And then now they started to fall off again. For me, it's they need to be competing a little bit better week in, week out, because sitting in 10th just isn't acceptable from a club as high standards as Arsenal sets. And I'm really excited to see what the second half of this Premier League offers us.
Yeah, it's going to be an extremely open year. We've never seen the table shift this much. We've never seen teams like West Ham being in fifth place. We've never seen teams, struggle. The top teams struggle the way they have this year, and I think it's due to somewhat of the COVID era. So anything's up for grabs this year, honestly, and you're going to see a lot of surprises. You're going to see a lot of shifting of the table, and I think come the end of the season, I think a lot of teams are still going to move around in the positioning. There's going to be a lot of changes still to come.
Yeah, I definitely think there is. Um, the one team we're gonna start off on with is Liverpool. Liverpool, they've been struggling as of late. Lots of injuries they've been dealing with, and now even more injuries since we've been back. Matip is gone for the rest of the season with ligament damage. He suffered that against Spurs this week. Done for the season. Henderson, which leaves Henderson being forced to play center back, and Fabinho's out as well right now with the muscle injury. Tons of injuries on their back line. Thank God Robertson and Trent have done a decent job this year. I know they were both injured for a short period of time this year, but they've done really well staying in shape and keeping their bodies in check, because I don't think that this Liverpool team can suffer any more injuries. And when we left, Liverpool was around 66 games home win streak. They won another two to 68. Their 69th, they lost. Their 70th, they lost. They've lost two home games in a row now, which has not been great for Liverpool. And now their next game is against City. And City's sitting top of the table, fantastic form. Liverpool, not so great at form. It's going to be a fantastic game to watch. And I'm really excited for this. It's going to be nuts. It's going to be such a good game.
It's going to be a very, very important game for Liverpool. I could tell you that. They're currently sitting 7 points back. That's a huge gap right now. And imagine if City wins it. I think Liverpool's done for the season. I don't think they can contend anymore for the title. And I think the main talking point about Liverpool, the main theme this year has been injuries, 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 not only in their back line, but in their midfield. They've seen new signing Thiago Alcantara barely play at times. And Jurgen Klopp's had to juggle a lot of moving parts this year. It's very tough for a manager to not only lose your top two center backs and then your substitution there in Matip, and then they had to slot in Fabinho even there, and he's out with a muscle injury of late. So they're forced to play a center defending midfield in Henderson. I give him credit because he's been a leader at the back. He's not used to that position. He's not accustomed to that position, and you've seen him slot in there. He's done his best. He's been very good at communicating with that back line, being a leader, and you know, we're going to talk about the transfers to come and later on in this episode. But they brought in two guys in the January transfer window. And Daniel, to be honest with you, if I was in charge there and I was able to bring in some guys, I would have done it as soon as the window opened, because they're really, really struggling at the center back position this year, and they've had to bring in some academy players, and they just haven't done it. Nathaniel Phillips has been okay, and and Reese Williams hasn't done it. He's made some big errors. So I just would have, Daniel, if I was in charge there in Liverpool and I had to say, I would have definitely brought in someone much more sooner. Hopefully, their two center back signings pan out. We'll talk about them later, though.
Yeah, I was okay with their signings. I agree with you. I think they should have been brought in a little bit earlier, especially, I got to feel the rhythm of this team. They're joining a new team. Both of them are coming into the Premier League for the first time. And I guess the Premier League's completely different to some of the leagues that they've been playing in, but we're going to get more into that later. I liked how you touched on Henderson, because for me, he's showing why he's their captain, because he's very versatile as a player. He plays anywhere in the midfield, and now you got him slotting in at center back. And I think he's been pretty decent considering he's not a center back by choice.
For sure, yeah.
And for me, he that's why he's their captain, because he's willing to do what most others aren't, to get a place in the team and to perform and pick up the 3 points for the team. And that's what a captain needs to be.
Yeah, we're gonna move on to City here. Uh, City, we already mentioned how phenomenal they've been of late. Just a little stat for you guys: in their last 13 games, they've won all 13 games, and they last lost points on December 15th in a draw against West Brom. Since then, like I said, 13 games straight winning. And in that streak, in that span, they've only allowed 4 goals. And City are currently 3 points up of second place Manchester United. Also, they have a game in hand too, so that's a huge game in hand for City. And just the turnaround, Daniel, it shows how good this team is. They were in a bad slump that happens to teams. I've been saying City's going to be at the top, and they are where they belong. As much as it pains me to say, because I do like my Chelsea, and Chelsea's not doing too good right now. So it just shows you how much depth they have, the mind of Pep Guardiola, and the belief in that team to rally together, and get the games that win games that they needed to win. So and they've been winning against some big teams as well. So they've been very good.
Their depth is absolutely incredible at City. I don't get it. How they have such fantastic depth. To me, it makes no sense as a player because it's like, what is City seeing that other teams aren't to bring in these players? And their depth is phenomenal. And then you go look at Pep. And Pep, everybody knows he's a world class manager. He's probably one of the best in the world. And he goes and does simple things. He has Laporte playing left back sometimes, allowing Joao Cancelo to go forward on the as a wing back, basically. And like just simple things, simple adjustments that he does, even at halftime, some of the subs that he brings in, like bringing in Foden a lot lately because he's been fantastic. For me, Pep is the best in the world, and it's really showing with just how much success that City's having. And right now, they seem like the team to beat at the top of the table. I know Manchester United is 3 points back, like you said, but City still have a game in hand. It's going to be tough for United to make up these 3 points because the form that City's in right now, they do not look like they're going to be slowing down anytime now. So United's going to have to win their head-to-head game, their second head-to-head game against Manchester City. The first one was a draw 0-0, and you got to hope that City screws up somewhere in order for Manchester City to come back in the start.
Yeah, you mentioned Cancelo there. Great point to mention how versatile of a player he is. Pep tactically has moved him around quite a bit. He's played on the left, where he's not used to playing. He's a natural right back by trade, and he's also played him even in the midfield as a center mid. At times, he's featured in several games. So it just shows you the versatility of the players that Pep has available to him. And you see Kevin De Bruyne being out once again with an injury. He's been really struggling this year with injuries. And who does he bring in? He brings in Gundogan, and Gundogan's been scoring goals left, right, and center, even as a center midfielder. So it's a scary sight if you're an opponent of Manchester City, if you're a fan of the club. Uh, it's just happy times because you have so much depth at your hands. There's so many quality players coming off the bench. There's so much competition there. You don't know who's going to play on any given day because they're just that stacked. They're just a stacked team,
Well,
and
it's amazing how stacked they are. It's incredible.
yeah.
Gundogan for me, I completely forgot to mention him. I'm so glad that you did because he has been absolutely phenomenal lately. I don't know what he's eating or Pep's feeding him or drinking. Like I have no clue. That guy is looking absolutely incredible. He's working well defensively. He's going forward. He has a bunch of assists and goals as of late, and he's been phenomenal. He's looking like Kevin De Bruyne of last season. Bruno, this year. I'm gonna shut up my boy real quick, but yeah, he's been phenomenal. So thank you for bringing that up.
So Daniel,
Um,
next to United, right?
yeah, we got to go to United
You're
here.
happy to talk about this.
I am very happy as of late. It was a week that went by. I wasn't as pleased with United, but after what they just showed this week against Sheffield, for those of you that don't know, they just beat Sheffield 9-0. Not Sheffield. Oh, I'm lost. Southampton.
Southampton, yeah.
Southampton. I said Sheffield. Southampton. They beat Southampton 9-0. It was the second back to back year Southampton's lost 9-0. They lost to Leicester 9-0 last year.
That it's a funny story. That last time out, for Southampton last year, they went against Leicester, and Leicester, like you said, won that one 9-0. That was funny because that was a game I never forget because I ended up betting on that game, and I won a couple $100 betting on the game. So I was so happy that day, and I can never forget it. And if you're a Southampton fan, I'm sure you wouldn't have forgotten not only last year's game but this year's game because it was absolutely embarrassing, and they gave up in
Oh,
this 9-0 defeat. It was embarrassing to watch, and it all began with a red card from the academy player Yankowicz. Just a just a silly tackle to make in the early stage of the game. It was 1 minute into the game, and he went studs up on McTominay, and there's no debate about it. He had no complaints. The player didn't want to contest the red card because
brutal.
he destroyed him. He could have ended his career there. It was a dangerous tackle. So
It was an extremely dangerous tackle, and like you said, he didn't even literally no complaints whatsoever. He knew as soon as he had put in the tackle that it was a red, and he literally started walking off as the ref went into his back pocket. Then you go look 2 weeks or last week, the week before the Southampton game against Sheffield. Sheffield, as we know, was sitting in last before, still sitting in last. Manchester United goes and loses this
brutal,
game 2-1.
brutal.
Absolutely brutal. It was just bad. It was I was screaming at my TV to be completely honest with all of you. I couldn't even watch it. It was so bad. Sheffield drew first blood. Nice little header. Maguire got a header back in the second half, and then late in the game, Sheffield scored again to make it 2-1, and United couldn't fight back like they have been fighting back basically all year. But it was so sad because we were on such a great run of form, and then losing to Sheffield, that's brutal because you're expecting the 3 points right there.
Yeah.
And then we go, and then the next week we go tie Arsenal 0-0. And there was a bunch of missed chances in this game. I think personally that this game could have gone maybe either way with Lacazette hitting the crossbar. United had plenty of chances. Cavani missed, like, I basically for me, two open nets. Um, Tons of chances in this game could have gone either way. If Manchester United would have taken the 3 points, again, looking at the title race now, it would have been so close because they would have been even in points and City still would have had the game in hand. But I think that United really has a shot here to do something that they haven't done for what, 10 years now, 12 years. And it's crazy to see because we were rivaling City when City had won their league, but we were 20 points back. And now this year, I know obviously it's only halfway through the year, but we're only 3 points back of City, and we still have to play them again. So this could be massive, and I think that that game against Southampton showing the rest of the league that they can score and they can keep a clean sheet. It's definitely a big turning point for Manchester United.
Yeah, I would say so as well. Um, they just have to continue being the dominant team in the game, and I think that Arsenal game there was moments when they were the dominant team. In my opinion, I think they could have won that one. A lot of failed chances, like you mentioned already. I think Cavani looked like he was lost in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there just wasn't that spark in the final third in that match, and I think that's what lacked in that match for Manchester United. Arsenal, like you mentioned, again the Aubameyang chance. So it could
Was
have gone
Lacazette.
either way, or Lacazette, pardon me. Um, but yeah, it was just a missed opportunity for United, and hopefully, uh, for United's sake, these missed opportunities don't end up costing them too much,
Mm-hmm.
especially games like the Sheffield one when you should be winning. Hopefully, those 3 points don't come back to haunt them
Yeah.
later on.
That was one of the main points. Even the announcers at the end of the game, it's like, how big are these 3 points going to be for Manchester United when all is said and done? Because when you're rivaling a team like City at the top of the league, they don't drop points too often, and when you're losing to bottom of the table Sheffield, it's could be absolutely huge at the end of the year.
Daniel, we're going to move on to our next segment here, transfers. We want to talk about some deadline day transfers in the January transfer window. This was relatively a quiet transfer window in the Premier League, I'd say. Just overall, throughout many leagues, it was very quiet. No notable signings of big names. But like I mentioned earlier, Liverpool, they had to address their center back issues. They had to bring in someone. And firstly, they signed Preston center back Ben Davies for 2.3 million US, or 2.8 million US rather. Um, a lot of people don't know his game. A lot of people don't, know what he's going to bring to the table. He's relatively young. Um, Hopefully, he pans out to help that back line and provide some depth there. Um, and they also bring in the Turkish international Ozan Kabak from Schalke. Um, I think it's a decent signing for them. It's on loan with an option to buy for 33 mil. 33 mil is a lot. It's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully he's worth that money. Maybe they just might loan him out for the season. Who knows? And then, wait for obviously Van Dyke and Matip and Joe Gomez to come back. That's more realistic in terms of Jurgen Klopp's options for next year. I think it'd be reasonable to maybe loan him if you don't like him. It's a safe bet. It's a safe option for them for sure because you wait for these guys to come back, and it doesn't make sense to sign Ozan Kabak on a permanent deal if he's average when you have these guys coming back that are levels above him. I think Kabak has potential, but I don't think he's at the level of the current center backs for Liverpool.
Yeah, this Kabak uh, loan, it was a little bit weird to me because he's young, he's 20 years old, he has plenty of potential. He's probably going to be good down the road. 33 mil, again, like you said, on the buy option is a lot for me. Kabak, he was on Schalke in the Bundesliga. Schalke was in last. He played like 12, I don't know if it was 12 or 14 games with like 42 goals conceded. I know that obviously that's not all on him, but being a starting center back on that team, a lot of that does fall on your shoulders. And then they placed a 33 million price tag. I'm like, that's a lot, isn't it? For me, this is a decent signing for Liverpool, or a loan rather, because they need it right now. And since it's only season long, by that time at the end of the year, like you mentioned, you'll have Van Dyke back, you'll have Joe Gomez back, you'll have Matip back. you'll get all your starters back. So I think that this is a good loan just to fill a spot that needs to be filled for for the rest of the season. But other than that, I really don't think that they're gonna continue with this buy option.
A notable signing as well. Joshua King, he leaves the championship and recently relegated Bournemouth. He comes up back to the Premier League. I think that's where he belongs. The Norwegian international signs for 13 mil US dollars. Daniel, he's not going to get the start every week because of the likes of Richarlison as well as Calvert Lewin. But I think it's a great option up front if you want to place Richarlison out on either side of the wing, and then you could put Joshua King, as that guy down the middle, or to play up top with Calvert Lewin. So
Mhm.
I think it provides some versatility up there for Carlo Ancelotti. I think he was needing that because they really didn't have that guy off the bench. They recently also loaned out Tosin back to Turkey. He's going back to Turkey to Besiktas, and
Besiktas, yep.
he was nowhere near good enough for the Premier League, in my opinion. Didn't do much. Was never, uh, never really had any impact since he joined the club. And I think his time at Everton's done for sure. And you bring in a guy like Joshua King, who is much more proven in the league, and he brings that spark and energy off the bench if you're to bring him on and say the 60th minute. And I think Everton, really needed that depth up front.
Yeah, I think Joshua King deserves to be in the Premier League. He was almost in the Premier League for his entire career. And then after getting relegated with Bournemouth, I feel like he wanted to move back to the Prem. So I think for Everton, even for a $13 million price tag, this is a good signing. I like it a lot, especially because, like you said, you can play him off top with Calvert Lewin or Charleston on the wing. Um, I like it a lot because I think he deserves to be there. I'm gonna move on to the next one quickly. Uh, Minamino joins Southampton on loan till the end of the season. I think this works for both teams. I think Southampton they get a little bit more attacking presence. You got Minamino out on your wing, and for Liverpool this is good too because he wouldn't really be starting in the team. He barely got subbed on. I think this is a good way for you to still keep him on your team, but him to go elsewhere to get a lot more playing time, to show his skills to Liverpool, to show why he should be coming off the bench or even starting for Liverpool.
Yeah, when I read this one, Daniel, this loan deal to Southampton, I was kind of shocked because I thought that Jurgen would have given him more opportunity to play, especially with
Mhm.
they obviously have that big front three with Firmino, Salah, and Mane, but there's a lot of games, and they've shown that when your players are out, your key players are out, you struggle, and you're gonna need some stability there with substitutions. And um, in my opinion, I think that Minimo could have fought for a spot, especially with Shaqiri and Origi up front. But I guess they wanted to give him guaranteed minutes, consistent minutes, and he'll definitely get that with the Southampton side,
Yep.
either playing as an attacking midfielder or out on the wing because he's quite versatile.
Mhm. Our next one here is Maitland Niles to West Brom on loan. Maitland Niles again. I don't think he was playing as much as he wanted to on Arsenal, and he definitely wants to get a lot of playing time in the Prem. So he requested a loan for the rest of the year, and they gave it to him to West Brom. West Brom obviously sitting lower in the table, and he's on loan there, so he knows that he can go get lots of minutes. Hopefully, kick them out of relegation and then return back to Arsenal for the next year where he can get more playing time. And for West Brom, this is a good signing too because their team, like I said, is sitting in 19th right now. So they need all the help that they can get to try to kick themselves out of relegation. And this was their quote unquote big signing of the January transfer window. So hopefully that he can propel this team and can do well and show to Arsenal why he deserves to be coming on as a sub or in the starting lineup, just like Minamino.
Yeah, Joe Willock was also loaned out in this January transfer window. He's going to go to Newcastle. Newcastle could use him in the midfield there. I think Joe Willock has some potential to him. He's a good center midfielder. And, on Newcastle will definitely get some more minutes. And like going back to Maitland Niles for a second here, I think Maitland Niles, there was 2 seasons ago, he was exploding onto the scene. And he was highly rated at the time. Right now, he doesn't have a spot. There's no spot for him right now because Arsenal just has too many fullbacks. They got Cedric and Bellerin on the right. Cedric can even play out on the left. We've seen him play there last game. And then they also have guys like Kieran Tierney and Bukayo Saka can even play as a left back. So there's too much competition there. There's too much. There's no opportunity for Maitland right now, and I think it was the right move for him. It's a no brainer for him. He's going to get lots of minutes. He can spark some something going forward. And for Arsenal, they just want to get rid of some of those guys and get them some minutes because they're not getting minutes right now for their their club.
And since we're on the Arsenal topic, even just quick things, Ozil terminating his contract,
Martin
Mustafi,
Odegaard, what do you think about that? What do you think about that signing?
Odegaard. I like that signing a lot. It's loan with option to buy, I believe. And I think that he's young. He has great potential. He showed last year in La Liga why he deserves. He played absolutely fantastic at Sociedad, and he's a great signing for them. I think he's going to do well in that midfield because they obviously need a little bit more creativity in that midfield. I feel like I love that signing for them. And then Ozil terminating contract, Mustafi terminating contract, Kolasinac sending him to Schalke, and Mustafi actually joined him at Schalke as well.
Schalke, yeah.
And
I know 500K worth of
mhm,
contract
weekly.
money weekly. So that's a lot of money Arsenal's saving on players that weren't playing, players that were out of favor. So I think it's the right move for them. Uh, they're just their time was done. I never thought Mustafi was a good center half. Ever since he came from Valencia, didn't do it for me. A lot of mistakes, very inconsistent. Uh, Ozil, as sad as the situation was, I'm happy to see him. Uh, he's going to get minutes for Fenerbahce. It's his boyhood club,
Mhm,
so I'm super happy for Ozil. I've always loved him since his Real Madrid days, um, and it was just silly how it ended there for Ozil. I think he deserved a little bit more respect for what he did for that club, and he was just loved by so many. And even the gesture of, we talked about this earlier in our first season, how he paid the salary of the mascot for Arsenal
mhm.
too. So it just shows you the type of person he is, just a humble guy, humble player, and I'm happy to see him starting to get his minutes for Fenerbahce, a club that he's wanted to play for quite some time.
Gonna move on to the last one here. My
Jay
man.
Lings, Jay Lings, baby,
We got
Lingardino,
Jesse
Lingardino.
Lingard or Lingardino as he's showing up lately. Moving on to West Ham. They're sitting in fifth. He's on loan to the end of the season. And his debut against Aston Villa shows up with 2 goals. It's a fantastic signing for West Ham. I think it's great because at Manchester United he wasn't that valued. Everything he's been through in the last year, his confidence has been down. I know his mother contracted COVID and I she was really sick from it. I'm not too sure how that ended, and a lot of family issues with COVID going around in the UK. Um, so he's been through a lot over the last year, and to see him joining West Ham, scoring those 2 goals in his debut, the smile on his face that he had, and everyone on the internet just going nuts because he's turning into the Lingardino that everybody knows and loves. It was great to see. I think this is great for United because when they get him back from loan, he has his confidence right back up there. And even for West Ham, he's a good enough playmaker in the midfield for them that he can do them some wonders, and it'd be good for both teams.
Yeah, I'm happy for Jay Lings, man. Lingardino's the best. Honestly, like he for Man United right now, I think Man United did him. They didn't do him a favor. They did him a favor in that he was able to leave, but they did it in a way that they kind of disrespected him as a player. I think that they made him look like he was not up to par of Man United's level, and I think that he could have contested for a spot definitely off the bench. And in my opinion, he's better than Donny Van de Beek right now. Donny Van de Beek hasn't been good at all for Man United, hasn't been getting his minutes as well, but I think he's better than Donny Van de Beek at this moment in time. I think Donny Van de Beek's the better player, but right now, in terms of form, Jay Lings is the better player. And I think Man United could even use them off the bench as that attacking midfield spark, and I think they lack that at some times. But for Lingard, this is a great opportunity to show the people talking about him wrong and show that he's capable of scoring goals in the Premier League. And that's what he did on his debut, getting a brace. So I'm super happy for Lingard, especially for with all he's been going through. Just a likable player, and 28 years old. It's not done for him yet. He's still got much to prove, and I think that if it pans out well for him, maybe it's a good option. West Ham would be a good option where he'd get minutes consistently, and yeah, I'm super happy for the guy.
Yeah, I'm really happy for him too. Um, would do you want to move on?
Yeah, we can move on to fan questions now. I'd say this is a segment that's new to us. We never really got the community involved, and some of the people that listen to our podcast. We don't got a huge following, but for those that listen, we really do appreciate you listening. So we want to hear your take and maybe having some questions answered. So we went to Instagram. We went on our Instagram at Premier Talk podcast, and we put out a little poll there, and we asked people, what are some questions you want to hear in our first episode back. So first one we got here, Daniel, got some good questions. This is a two-parter. Thomas had two questions. Thomas Parknick, shout out Park. We love you, man. You got a good podcast as well, Above the Nosebleeds. So, we've been on the show as well. So, a guest of the show and a friend of the show. So, Park asked, he's a big Arsenal guy. What does Arsenal need in order to get back to the UCL? To be honest, to answer your question right away, Park,
A lot.
they need a lot. They need a lot. Um, there's a problem with Arsenal and what they do in terms of signing players, and I think the big problem here is that they sign unproven players. They, for example, I'll go to Nicolas Pepe. I before he signed for Arsenal, I honestly thought he was going to be that spark that they needed up front to go along and complement Aubameyang, and I think that he has the potential to still, but not to the degree in which I thought before. I think 72 million pounds was an outrageous sum of money to pay for him, even though he was, he was
One season
dynamic.
wonder.
He was dynamic for Lille that season. He was absolutely incredible. He looked unstoppable, and he also led them to qualifying for the Champions League for the first time in quite some time. And it's guys like that. It's guys like Saliba that unproven. He's too young. If you want to be in the UCL, you want to be in it now, Daniel and Pak. Uh, you have to sign proven players. You have to sign players that are experienced. You have to sign players that are serious signings. I'm talking about, spending a little more money and spending money on the right guys that have been proven in order to really bolster your team and secure, especially a defense that is struggling. And I don't think the center back options that they have right now are too good with Rob Holding and David Luiz. It's not serious enough for me.
hmm I completely agree with you. The Pepe signing I never liked personally. I know Pac knows this, being a friend of the podcast and a friend of mine as well. He knows that I was never a fan of the Saka signing. And even if you look at top players right now that they have, like Aubameyang, I think everybody considers him to be one of the best on Arsenal. And you look at his form this entire season basically has been brutal when it comes to top striker standards. Even as a mid tier striker, it's been brutal. Like he has 5 goals this year, which is absolutely terrible. And I think even just to his standards in general, he knows that he's been playing poorly, and I think he really needs to step up and be a leader on this team in order for them to even have a shot at like a top 6 this year. Because the teams that like they're so far back, well, I wouldn't say so far back in the race, but they're sitting in 10th right now. They're 5 spots out of a Champions League, and that's a lot of ground to catch up. Even though we're only halfway through, they still have a lot of time, and hopefully that they can. But like you said, they need players that know how to play in the Premier League, players that are very well already, like they're well known around the world, and players that aren't just like, for instance, Pepe. One season for me, he's a one season wonder. He played fantastic at Lille. They knew that they could get the money for him, so they sold him 72 mil. Is he worth that? Not a chance. But you got to sign players that are more developed, more known. I think so. I agree with you completely.
Yeah, Daniel, we're gonna move on to our next one here. It's also from Pockernick. Best youngster. Who do you think, Daniel? Best youngster.
I think for me, there's two that are really good youngsters. You got Greenwood and you got Saka. Saka being on Arsenal, I guess Pac's gonna love this one. He definitely has a shot of being absolutely fantastic. He's such a good player already, and he's under 21. He's great. Greenwood, same thing. Both of them are fantastic. Andrew, what do you think? Back from the leg, Andrew, who's your best youngster?
Sorry about that. Technical difficulties here. But going back to answer Poc's question, best youngster right now, we'll say U20. We'll go U21 here. Uh, I think Saka is a good honorable mention here. He's just there at number two. He's, I have it. I have some stats here. He's got 5 goals and 2 assists in 18 matches. It's not the best stat line there, but it's pretty decent for a youngster. He's been doing quite well for them. But I got Pedro Neto. He's a winger for Wolverhampton Wanderers. He's got 4 goals and 4 assists in 21 games, so pretty decent stats. So almost similar to Saka's there. But if you tune into a Wolves game and you watch him play up top, you see how talented he is. He's so good on the ball. He's got great dribbling ability, and he's got an eye for goal and a great finishing ability as well. So, being a Portuguese fan of the national team, it's super exciting times. The golden era for Portugal right now. A lot of up and coming talent, and I hope he continues to grow in the way that he's and continues to play the way he's playing because he's been absolutely phenomenal. They signed him from Lazio, and he's been a great replacement for Diogo Jota, that's now plays for Liverpool.
We move on to the next question here from Matthew Silva, another friend of the podcast. Who will win the Premier League this season? Andrew, I'm gonna leave this one for you. Who do you think?
Daniel, I'm gonna have to stay with my original prediction from earlier on in the podcast. From the first season, I said Manchester City come before the season started, and I said that for various reasons, and I stuck by them, even though they had a very bad stint of games and that they were sitting mid table at one point. And Daniel, how can you not say Manchester City? They have arguably one of the best coaches ever. They have
Mhm.
a team that is so deep from the back line to the midfield to the attacking options that they have. They have Gabriel Jesus and Aguero at the striking position. You couldn't ask for anything else, Daniel. And
Mhm.
then you got midfield options that can interchange on any given day. And then they go and bring in a guy like Ruben Diaz. I'm going to talk about him in one of the other questions that we had sent in from the community. Daniel, their team is so stacked. They have so much depth. They have absolutely phenomenal coaching.
Mhm.
It's a recipe for a title there. So I have to stick with Manchester City.
I'm gonna have to sadly agree with you here. I think Manchester City will win the Premier
You
League
said
this season.
Tottenham before, didn't you? Though, eh?
I think I
Not
said
since you
Everton. Everton at the
Everton.
beginning.
Oh my.
It was the form that they were in when they were unstoppable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very poor prediction on my part. Just looking to see someone you knew, as a title, very hopeful at the beginning of the year, but didn't pan out. I'm gonna go with Manchester City. I know it's very sad to say. I gotta stay hopeful though that United can catch them in this title race and win the Premier League. But like you said, the depth that they have, the coaching that they have, the great form that they're in recently, like for me, there's no way that they lose this. This is their Premier League title to lose.
Yeah, I think so as well. Manchester City they're in the driving seat right now, like we said, and um, but I wouldn't, as a Manchester United fan, I would still be hopeful, like you're saying, because anything could happen. We said this is the COVID-19 era. We don't know what's going to happen. Players can get out, get sick, and be out for quite some time. So the dynamic can change in any given day. So you never know really this year in the Premier League. And we've certainly seen some upsets. We've seen some teams shift around uncharacteristically. So you never know this year. So, but I still got to go with City. They're too stacked, and the depth will prove to be that deciding factor. I think.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Next question is from my boy Mateus Pedro. Shout out Mateus. He said, "This 2021 season, who has been the most impactful?" Daniel, I'm gonna throw it off to you.
I think there's been tons of impactful players this year. For me, this is gonna come off as bias, but I swear it's not. Bruno, for me, has been definitely the most impactful player this season. He's been absolutely phenomenal for Manchester United, and I can't see anybody else in the Prem with the stats he has, goals and assists, even when he's not scoring goals and assists.
Even when he's not scoring penalties, Daniel. Yeah,
Okay, you with this penalty, not no, no, no. He doesn't score penalties. He does so much. If you watch, like, just everything flows to him in the midfield. He's so creative with everything he does, and I don't see anybody in this season that's been very much more impactful than he has. Do you? What do you think?
honestly, Bruno is up there for sure. But I'm just gonna take, I'm gonna go back to Manchester City here and Ruben Diaz. I love him as a player. He's a great, he's a great guy off the field as well. Um, but you've seen since he's come in late September what he's done for this team defensively. He had to shift a little bit to the Premier League and adjust a little bit, but I think he has the physicality for that, and he's shown it that he's a physical player, and he's been able to adjust quite well. And in the last seven Premier League games that he's featured in, there's been a total of 0 goals scored so
Mm-hmm.
against them. So he's been instrumental in that. If you've seen and tuned into Manchester City games of late, he's an anchor at the back line for them. He's made John Stones look like Maldini. So he's revived his Manchester City career for John Stones because John Stones was, ready to go out at the start of the season. So he's just been phenomenal. I think he's had an instrumental impact in that team and in that back line. And I don't like throwing this around too much. The world class. I think people throw it around too much, saying this
Mm-hmm.
guy's a world class player or that guy's a world class player. But I think honestly, Ruben Diaz is going to be a world class player. He's already a good player. He's a great player, but I think he'll turn into that world class type player because he's shown that he's very experienced in the little time that he's played in the league, and he looks like he's been playing forever, literally,
Hmm.
as he's come into the squad. So
We're gonna move on to the last question here. Shout out to friend of the podcast and Leo Hilo. He asked us most underrated and most overrated player in the Prem. Andrew, start us off.
uh I'm gonna start with overrated. And overrated for the reason that he signed a big contract. He penned a new contract this year. It was big money. He's 31. He's at like a peak of his career here, and it's no one other than Aubameyang. I love Aubameyang, but I think he's overrated because people talk about his great finishing ability, which he had a great season last year. But if you're as good as you're made out to be, and you wanted to pen this new contract to prove your worth, prove it. You have 5 goals in 18 games. It's just not good enough for a player of your caliber, your stature. So he's got to be the overrated one for me. And I think honorable mention too. I think he's really good, but I think he's a tad bit overrated. People make him out to be Kevin De Bruyne type, and that's no one other than Jack Grealish. I think he's a good player. I think he's an up and coming player for sure, very talented. But I think he's a little bit overrated, and he's got that British hype to him too. So, but he's a good player, but not nearly as overrated as Aubameyang. I think Aubameyang needs to be criticized a little bit more because he's shown us he's capable this year. He hasn't, and there's just something off with him this year. I don't know what it is, but he hasn't been good enough for them with 5 goals.
Hmm.
And then Daniel, want to go say you're overrated, and then I'll go
Yeah,
back to my
I'll
underrated.
go with my overrated. My honorable mention for me is Aubameyang because I agree with all the points that you made. I think with the big contract, his age, how well he's been lately or last year, and then coming into this year and just underperforming so much, I think he's definitely one of the most overrated. But I'm gonna go one step above him for me, Firmino. I
Yeah,
know a lot of Liverpool fans might disagree with me, especially on this one, but Firmino for me, especially with the Liverpool goal scoring for I'm gonna say goal scoring form because they've been brutal putting balls in the back of the net as of late. And Firmino has been playing week in, week out, but hasn't been scoring goals. And I know he's not necessarily your quote unquote striker. He's more of a hold up guy for Mane and Salah to run into the box and get him behind. But I think even as he has what would you call him a number 10, he can still finish, and he's a great goal scorer, and he's just not showing it this year. So for me, he's my most overrated player in the Prem. We're
yeah.
gonna move on.
That's pretty good. Some fair, you know, comment to make with Firmino. I think that just touching upon it quickly, uh, Firmino is not supposed to be that guy that's supposed to score you
Hmm.
goals day in day out, but he's got to bag some as well, and he hasn't been doing much up there. He's been non-existent in terms of the in terms of the goal scoring department. I know we're being harsh on him a little bit here. He's supposed to be that number 10, the number 9, if you will, to sort of feed and hold up the play for Mane and Salah because
Hmm.
they're just so dangerous in front of the net, and they kind of take away from his goal scoring ability. But I think that Firmino, it's been kind of a lack of confidence for him, and you know, there's guys that could definitely take his place, and I think Diogo Jota would be a great substitution for him, and
Hmm.
not because he's Portuguese, and I got a little bit of Portuguese bias. I'll be honest with you, Daniel. I love
We got
my Portuguese.
Ruben Diaz in
Yeah,
here. We got
I love my Portuguese players, Daniel, but uh I think right now, once Jota's healthy, you got to give him a go. You got to let him play and give him consistent minutes and challenge for that striking position there for Liverpool.
yeah. We're gonna move on to underrated. Andrew, I want you to start us off with underrated as well. How do you feel?
Underrated, it easily has to be James Madison from Leicester, the midfielder there. James Madison is an up and coming player. He's you know 23, 24, I believe. I think he's 24, still fairly young, and he's just so dynamic in that midfield for Leicester. He's an instrumental part of that midfield for them and that team, that core. And his link up play with Jamie Vardy's been next to none. And I think that Leicester is in the position that they're currently in because they have a guy like James Madison. If you don't have that creative midfielder, uh, and the creative midfielder of his talent, his quality, you're not going to be sitting in the top 5. You're not.
Hmm.
And he's been instrumental in propelling them to where they are now. He's got, I got it written down here. He's got 6 goals and 5 assists. That's pretty good from him. He's not supposed to be, netting goals day in day out because he's a midfielder. But if you watch him play, it's sometimes he's slotted on the wing as well, which is, it's not his. I don't think it's his best position. I think he's better down the middle of the park,
Hmm.
but he's definitely underrated. I don't think people talk about him enough. I think that he's got great quality to him, and he's still so young. So it's exciting to see what's to come from James Madison, and I really give Leicester credit for what they've done this season. People always seem to count them out. I've counted them out a little bit this year. Daniel, obviously your dark horse pick. I don't think it's that much of a dark horse, but uh, you know, super quality from James Madison. So he has to be my underrated player.
I got an honorable mention here. I want to go with James Milner as a very big honorable mention because for me, he's been underrated his entire career at Liverpool. Like he's one of those guys that Klopp can say, "James, go do this," and he does it
James,
for
go
you.
play goalkeeper. All right,
Yeah,
we
he
need a
does not.
goalkeeper today.
He does not care where he plays. He'll play fullback, midfielder, attacker. He doesn't care if he's in net. He does not care. And for me, that makes him underrated because he's one of those versatile players that can play anywhere for you, and he's willing to do anything for the team. Huge honorable mention there. Underrated. This is this is not Manchester United bias. I swear to you, it's not Manchester United bias. Luke Shaw this season has been absolutely phenomenal, and he's underrated for me because nobody talks about him.
I
He
try
has
not
the
to laugh,
most.
Daniel. So
He has the most completed crosses in the league from a fullback. And when you think of completed crosses, you go straight to who do you go to? I'm gonna ask you who you go to because I'm thinking right away, Trent and Robertson.
yeah, Trenton Robinson
Cons-
or yeah.
Considering their attacking prowess that they have and how much they're overlapping runs and crossing balls into the box, you got Shaw, who has been absolutely phenomenal for Manchester United defensively this year and going forward. He's been great, and I think he's really underrated this year. Maybe not years prior, but this year he's been fantastic for Manchester United. I'm gonna put him as very underrated.
Aaron Wan-Bissaka is a good one too
Hmm.
because I think he's underrated as well. He's a good player to talk about too because he's so good defensively. But
Hmm.
what's even better about him is his ability to shift defensively to the attack. He's so quick to get out there. And we
Hmm.
saw last game against Southampton, he was a menace and they couldn't stop him. And he just was able to get in behind, tap in an easy goal off a nice cross. And
From no one other than
Bruno, he had two
no
assists in the
no no
game.
no, it wasn't Bruno that one.
It
Guess who
wasn't
it
Bruno?
was? It was Luke Shaw.
Luke Shaw. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was Bruno. But
No, it
anyway,
was Luke Shaw. That one was Luke Shaw.
yeah, just I think he's a good player to mention as well because he's so young, but he looks so experienced as well, like Ruben Dias. Just players above their age, well above their age, and
Hmm.
it was a good sum of money, a good chunk of money buying him from Crystal Palace. But I think that he was a good solution because their fullback struggles in years prior were quite serious. They had Ashley Young, didn't do it for me.
Didn't
They
do it.
brought in Diego
Valencia.
Dalot, Valencia. Valencia was pretty good for them over the
He was
years.
decent. Yep.
I say he before Aaron coming in, Valencia was a good fit for them.
Hmm.
But guys like Diogo Dalot, Portuguese guy, came into the team very young. I don't think he was ready for that. He's obviously doing well at Milan. I think he'll stay in Milan, AC Milan, that is. But Manchester United, they've been struggling in terms of their fullbacks, and they bring in Alex Telles, but Luke Shaw's fighting for his place, and I think
Hmm.
that was a turning point for Luke Shaw this season because when Alex Telles came in, things became real. Because
Yep.
honestly, Brandon Williams I think he's got potential to him. I don't think he's going to be as good as Luke Shaw, to be honest. I think Luke Shaw is going to be that better player as time goes on.
Mhm.
So I don't think he was good enough competition for Luke. And I think that bringing in a guy like Tellez, the former Porto man, is going to give him some challenge, to fight for his place. And I think that's benefited him uh, quite to his advantage.
Yeah, I think competition never hurts, especially in club competition. When you're bringing in players and then players know that they have to go out and play great in order for them to maintain their spot in the starting 11 is great for teams. And it happens all over the place. And in the Prem, like just Luke Shaw Tellez as an example, he knows that Tellez is he did a really good job at Porto, and he knows that Tellez has what it takes to rival a starting 11 spot. So Lucia knows that he needs to come on and perform week in, week out. And for me, he's done that this year.
Daniel, I
I
think
just
this.
wanted to say,
Yeah, yeah,
can I,
go for it. Go for
I
it.
just wanted to say, I appreciate the fans for these questions. For those of you that want to ask questions, we're going to be at posting weekly polls and weekly posts on our Instagram at Premier Talk Podcast. So make sure to go over there and follow. And thank you to all of you that have giving us some questions.
Yeah,
'cause
and
we love
Daniel,
doing
like
this type of
we're
stuff.
gonna post some questions for people too on social media. We also want to like hear what you guys have to say about some of these topics. So there'll be times when we put out a poll about a certain question, posing the question to you guys and seeing what you guys feel about it. It could be any given thing relating to the Premier League. So you just want to hear from you guys, and we obviously thank you guys for obviously sending in these questions. You know it helps know that there's some people following us. It gives us
Mhm.
that motivation, and it's cool. It's cool to see. And even if it's one, two, three questions, we don't care. We just love talking about the Premier League, and it gives us some room for debate here. So we really appreciate it.
And like Andrew said at the beginning, we are now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're everywhere.
Daniel,
And
we're
we can
moving up. Daniel,
We're moving up. We're gonna continue to expand wherever you guys want to listen. You go to listen to your favorite podcast streaming websites or apps. We're gonna be there. So we love giving you guys this content, like we already said, and we want to continue to move up and keep pumping out content for you guys.
Yeah, that about wraps it up for this episode. This is episode 1 of season 2. Big things are coming this season. We're gonna get a lot more guests on the show for sure. We really want to get that engagement up, and we're gonna have multiple people coming on, a lot of friends of the podcast coming on. So we're super excited for that. But that about wraps it up for this episode 1. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys next time.
See you later.
Peace.